The Minnesota Vikings are pretty much the best team in North American team sports to never win a championship. Welcome to Before We Die with Jesse and Thor on Purple Daily and Score North.
What's going on, everybody? This is Purple Daily's Before We Die on Score North. I'm Jesse Pierce, constantly writing about hockey, but switching over to the Vikings side because the Wild, not great. The Vikings 7-1, baby. He's Thor Nystrom. Thor's always bringing the positivity, drinking that purple Kool-Aid, and filling in for Ross, who is in Lincoln, Nebraska this weekend. We've got Dex with us. Boo. Just starting the show off just on fire. Nicely done, Declan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, of course. You know, I know Roscoe threw this out here about a few weeks back. I think he planned this trip before, the Gophers' demise, Thor. So I think when they were 4-0 going into the Purdue game, he had this locked in the schedule. And I know he's the biggest Gopher football fan I personally know. So he probably would have went regardless. But I think he probably missed a better Victory Monday opportunity here with the Vikings at 7-1.
I credit Ross with the comeback win there in the second half. Ross, he labored to teach me how to pronounce the backup quarterback's name. And then the backup quarterback comes in, that redshirt freshman, has his best game of his career so far. So that's all credit to Ross.
Shout out to Ross. We miss you. We'll see you back here on Thursday. Shout out to all the fans who came out to First Rounders at Mall of America for the live show presented by Surly. Dex, that was a heck of a time.
It was a lot of fun. I mean, we've never been to that sports bar before, and I believe it's a new one in the MOA. So it's a newish bar, and yeah, we met so many cool Vikings fans that were able to come up on stage with us too, and vent some frustrations and more celebrations too. I love that even when they win, there's still something to complain about. So that's kind of the nature of our show. So I'm glad they all showed up. I'm glad they drank their Surly Brewing products. I'm glad they all had a good time. It was a blast.
Vikings fans? You don't say, Dex.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not jagged, not worried about what's going to happen. Not at all. Not them.
I mean, I will admit it, and because people have come for me in the comments on it, I am now thinking the Vikings are on the good side of being a 7-1 team. I've been critical. I've been hesitant to admit that I'm all on board because I'm not always ready to be hurt. There's been a lot of healing, a lot of scarring over the years following this Minnesota Vikings team, as you all well know. But they are now 7-1, and I will say that victory against the Commanders in Washington yesterday, I'm in. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Super Bowl or bust. All in. Ready to ride.
Agreed. Yeah. We've been talking in some of these past episodes about how you want to start winning some of these games by margin, but this was a wonky spot, right? It was a road game against a team that had been playing really well, that had strengths that lined up against, being able to potentially take the Vikings out of some of the things that they like to do. And we did see that after the first drive for a while. But the Vikings were able to get back on track at the end of that game, come back and win it. That's all that matters to go to 7-1. And now you have the Bills game coming up, and we may or may not see Josh Allen. We may be getting the Case Keenum and Stephon Diggs. I guess it's not a return to Minneapolis, but we may get the Minneapolis Miracle connection on Sunday, which I know we're all praying for.
I'll pray. We'll break that game down more in Thursday's episode. Yesterday, TJ Hockenson, you guys, he makes his debut. 9 receptions, 9 targets, 70 yards. What did we think of TJ's performance? I loved it. I love it. I'm all ready.
He had an incredible game. I mean, 5 days after he gets acquired via trade, he's playing 90% of the snaps. That was the stunning thing to me. You know how big of a fan I was of that trade in a vacuum, but we thought maybe Hockenson plays 50% of the snaps because that's what everyone does right after they get acquired in a midseason trade. But Hockenson picked that playbook up really quick, and O'Connell gave us an indication in the pregame. He did an interview, I believe, with Tom Pelissero, and he sort of had a Cheshire cat grin on his face when he said, "You're going to see Hockenson a lot more than people think you're going to see him." And that's indeed what turned out to be the case. And not only that, Hockenson was a main part of the game plan, the game script. And KOC had also indicated, this portrait that I've just drawn of the game script that we're going to do in this game coming up, that Hockenson is an extremely big main character of it. And that's what turned out to be the case. He had the 9 catches. He did well on blocking. There was a one long pass play where he made a key block. He was also really good in just creating diversions on Delvin Cook's touchdown catch. It was Hockenson that pulled the safety the other way to allow Delvin to get deep like that. So just a fabulous debut performance by Hockenson.
Sometimes, Thor, I hate that you take literally everything I was going to say because now I have nothing. I mean, honest to God, I was going to say he opened up the holes for Dalvin Cook. You said that. He was an inline threat with a blocking ability. You said that. So thank you, Thor.
You got it.
Dex, what did you think? I mean, I think the other great thing about TJ Hockenson is not only obviously what he's able to provide for the Vikings, but man, he's got to be thrilled. He's on a team now that has 7 wins in their first 8 games. I don't think he topped more than 6 wins with Detroit through his rookie seasons, right? Like, so he's got to be just jacked as heck to be here. I feel very Kirk Cousins when I say heck.
He's got a lot of, extra playability to his game. He's obviously that yak monster. And I mean, Thor, I know you have seen a lot of Hawkeye football, and you probably can attest that Kirk Cousins is far and away the best quarterback in college or in the NFL that this dude has at his disposal now. And yeah, he was he was impressive in the debut, and I think one of the Ventline fans brought this up at first round yesterday was, if KJ Osborne isn't going to take, this step that we thought he was going to take after a nice second season, if Adam Thielen's maybe coming down to earth a bit, well, now all of a sudden TJ Hockenson emerges as like the legit intermediate weapon that if Justin Jefferson's taken away, you can rely on this awesome freak of nature tight end who can kind of bail you out and then also still give you really big chunk plays.
1,000%. And it's crazy that we saw that right away, right? Like right away. That was the surprising thing. The game after it happens, 5 days after it happens, you're going to see a lot more of that. And your point's really well taken, Dex. Hockenson is a guy who in an enormous frame, and he's a fabulous athlete. He in the RAS, he was like a 92 percentile athlete, something like that. But he's also a very good route runner. You saw a little bit of that. Some of the catches were just him coming across the formation, just sort of short dump offs. But you also got to see some of that route running, and that's what you're going to see more and more. Him creating the separation and also drawing the attention of the opposing defense, which we usually talk about that with regards to Justin Jefferson. But now that the defense has to concentrate on both of those guys, it's only going to help the other ancillary, tertiary guys in the offense get their space.
Hawkinson's 9 catches, the most by a Minnesota Vikings tight end since Kyle Rudolph when he had 9 against the Lions in 2018. Love to see it. We mentioned Kirk Cousins. We got to talk about Kirk again, guys. Maybe I'm team Kirk. I never thought I'd say that either. Maybe I'm team Kirk. Iced out on the plane, shirtless, just having a good time. All of a sudden, he's like that fun dad at the club a little bit. I mean, what more can we say about Kirk Cousins? I mean, obviously, he loves his newest weapon with Hockenson. Led the team down to get that tying goal, get within field goal range then, too, for Greg the Leg to kick the game winner. I mean, Kirk Cousins, 3rd most in touchdown passes in Vikings history as well, you guys. Are we all team Kirk? I think we have to be. We can't hate on him so much anymore, right?
We definitely are team Kirk, and Kirk is living his best life this year. Last year he was pushing Zimmer on the sidelines and all that, and he was surly and he was looking over his shoulder when he'd have a bad pass. This year, you're seeing the best life Kirk could possibly live. He's got the chains on in the post-game celebration. He's doing the tongue-in-cheek. You like that, in the post-game. I love to see that and watch it. We called that. We thought that we might see that, and we did. He's having a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun when you go 7-1.
Yeah, he's probably having a little less fun as the interior O-line continues to struggle a little bit. He got sacked. What can be done there? We saw, Garrett Bradbury and Schlottman really just pushed aside so often yesterday. It just kind of, that's the only concerning point. That's the only negative thing I'll say, guys, too. I will be positive the rest of the freaking show, I promise, but you got to address it. I mean, is that a concern? I mean, it could be a big concern, obviously, heading in to Buffalo next week.
Yeah, it definitely is. And, Bradbury went down with that injury for a little bit and stuff like that. It looks like he'll be okay. But, yeah, I mean, the guard play is what, and pass pro specifically was awful. In fact, Ezra Cleveland had a 0.0 PFF pass blocking grade. He gave up 9 pressures in that game. The interior pressure was coming the entire game because Ed Ingram struggled mightily again in pass pro as well. Wasn't quite as bad as Cleveland, but he was not good. Ingram did do pretty good in the run blocking, which has been a consistent strength of his all season. But the pass pro thing has not come to fruition yet. You hope that you see it, but that part of his game has started to get a little bit problematic when you start thinking, projecting it forward when you're going to be in some of these, what could be higher scoring games or games where you need to get a lot of passing production. Can you afford to have Ed Ingram, his pass pro struggles? And if it's in conjunction with Ezra Cleveland doing the pass pro like he was doing yesterday, that's very concerning.
Yeah. One thing that continues to get better, and I think we owed Ed Dontel possibly like a small apology at this point because the defense continues to just absolutely wreck teams and get their way to the quarterback. I mean, shout out there again. We're putting the D back in Dontel, I think.
Yeah, Donatel, he's going to get the last laugh on us with that one. You know, like it in September, it was a very slow acclimation process into the 3-4. And there was a couple of these games where they struggled situationally or struggled against the pass early on in the season. There was the struggles against the run, but it's like one by one, all these things are getting tightened up game by game, and things are getting better and better and better. Plus the players who were having a hard time acclimating initially, now you're starting to see them take off. Danielle Hunter yesterday, 2 sacks. A guy where all season we're like, when is Danielle? When is it going to click for him? And it finally has. And it's funny, you know, in September when we were talking about it, it's like, man, this could be a tough one because you're delineating so much of your cap to Danielle Hunter, and he's such a stud. But now you're making a, you know, he's 4-3, hand in the dirt defensive end to 3-4 outside linebacker. Maybe he just can't hack it there. And we were talking about like Donatel really has to consider, you know, doing some stuff like maybe you go to the multiple fronts where like on some plays you go to the 4-man defensive front and then Hunter can rush with his hands in the dirt. Donatel made those adjustments. Like he actually did. And then, you know, situationally, Hunter gets to put his hand in the dirt again, and he's just as devastating as he always was. Plus, he's starting to put more pressure from the outside as the 3-4 outside rushing linebacker. Yesterday, Zadarius Smith has been a stud all season. But yesterday was the best game that those two have had in conjunction because Zadarius was playing like he always did. He racked up a whole bunch of pressures again. But this time, Danielle, it was actually the meat at the quarterback thing that they talked about over the offseason.
Yeah. We also got a shout out to Harry the Hitman, you guys. Harrison Smith coming in huge. Fantastic celebration at the end as well with the bowling on that. I just absolutely love to see it. What can you say about Harrison Smith? I feel like, and this could just be me, he's been a little bit quieter, right? Like we haven't talked about Harrison Smith nearly as much as we have in years past. And not to say that is for lack of him doing anything good. It's just, he's kind of been a little bit more ghost-like, if you will. And you really saw him shine yesterday.
Yeah. And this is another acclimation into the system thing because previously with Zimmer would use him in or around the box a lot. And that's why, you know, so often in games in years past, you would hear the announcers calling out Harrison Smith's name all the time because he's always around the ball there. Whereas Donatel, you know, pushing the 2 safeties back, the shell thing we were making fun of earlier this season, Harrison Smith is just starting further. Harrison Smith is starting further away from the ball. He's having to do more center field type duties like that. But getting the 3 consecutive games with interceptions, you're starting to see him lock into what his new role is quite a bit more. And those field flipping plays in games where it's the 1 possession win, or I think now, what is it? 6 straight wins of 1 possession for the Vikings. I mean, like those plays are friggin' enormous. Yeah. The field flipping plays, and Harrison Smith has been coming up with those.
I'm glad you brought that up, Thor, because that was going to be my next point too. The Vikings are now 6-1 in 1-score games this year. They went 6-8 in 1-score games last season. I mean, that's a huge difference for this team to be able to pull out those wins. And like I said, they haven't been pretty, and we've criticized them pretty heavily. But yesterday's, you know, close win, it was a more convincing win, right? I mean, the way that they drove down and got Kirk Cousins time even to make that game-winning drive is just, it was tremendous. I mean, things really seem to finally be really clicking on all ends, whether it's the defense. I lied. There is still one more tiny little criticism that I'm going to put in there. Third quarter. Every game, there is an issue within the third quarter. And it's great because Kirk fourth quarter is tremendous, it seems. But what the heck is going on there with the third quarter struggles pretty consistently this year?
That's the one thing they got to tighten up. And it's hard to say, right? Because like the offense has been good in the other 3 quarters, and the third quarter, barring what was it? Was it last week or the week before? They put up 14 in the third, but like outside of that, the offense has not played well in the third quarters this year. I do have a slight correction. The Vikings are actually 6-0 in 1 possession games because the loss was to the Eagles. But he said 6-1.
I say 6-1.
I'm pretty sure he did. But that's
X. Can we rewind the tape?
You'll have to rewind it because even the producer wasn't listening if you said 6-1 or 6-0. So there's 3 flags. There's multiple flags on the field right now.
I will expect Jesse's apology in the next episode. But either way, your point's well taken on Kirk Cousins at the end of games. like in the past, a lot of people, Vikings fans included, had criticized Cousins as sort of like an empty calorie stat guy who did not have the clutch gene.
Yeah.
This year, it's sort of inversed itself, right? Where like some of these games heading into the fourth quarter, Cousins does not have the best counting stats, but over and over again, he has played really well in that final frame. Not sure the difference between the third quarter and the fourth, but it's working out so far. Ed, they just got to fine tune that third quarter thing, Ed, and we'll be rolling.
I just pulling out the stats for you guys. Minnesota ranks 29th in the NFL for third quarter points per game. So it's something that we're all seeing. Let's lock it up, KOC, improve on that. That would be grateful. I'm sick of like watching games like this sometimes, like getting very nervous. Even at the end when Greg the Leg was going to kick it, were you guys nervous? Because we've been very harsh on our boy Greg Joseph for good reason, mind you. How were we nervous? Were we feeling the nerves while we were at that live show? I know Thor and I did a quick whiskey shot just to like calm ourselves, but I don't know. What were your guys' thoughts on Greg Joseph, who came through clutch for the Minnesota Vikings, obviously?
Well, my thought was when the bartender brought it over with pickle juice, I was like, what is this?
You've never had a pickleback? Like,
No.
That's wild to me.
I've had a pickleback, yeah.
I hate
Go
whiskey.
Huskies,
And I
St.
think,
Cloud State, yeah. I know that very well.
I think the server was getting commission on whiskey because every time he came over, he was like, "You ready for that whiskey?" And I was like, "Absolutely not, sir. It is a Sunday."
Yeah. I am a mom
mother.
of three. Yeah.
I'm a mom. And then he was so persistent. And I was like, you know what? Let's do it. But I can only do it with pickle juice because I hate whiskey that much. Like, just nah. It's a hard pass normally for me. But it was, the spirit of the thing.
He was like the Vikings pass rush. You keep knocking on that door, it's eventually going to fall off its axis.
Exactly. It was good. But yeah, I mean, in general, again, great win for your Minnesota Vikings yesterday.
I just wanted to say one other thing about the defense. The one long touchdown that the Washington got, they were given by the ref who tackled Bynum when Bynum had a free interception. Heineke throws it into triple coverage downfield. It's a badly underthrown ball.
Yeah.
And so Bynum just turns into like Torrey Hunter he's just waiting for the ball to come. He's sort of drifting over, and then the ref gives him the forearm shimmy right as the ball.
We got every sport involved in that game. There was a little bit of hockey checking. There was a little bit of basketball pick setting. And then, waiting for that fly ball to drop.
I love when the ref was on the ground after he ran into Bynum and he put his hands up. He did that thing. It's like, bro, you're the ref. You don't put the hands up thing. You definitely screwed up, and you're showing it now. But yeah, I mean, you take that out of Washington stats, that one pass play down the field. The Vikings defense shut them down throughout that game. And again, that should not have been a touchdown. It should have been the Vikings ball going the other way. And by the way, Bynum would have had a little bit of room to run, right? Like going forward. So who knows how far he brings that out. But he get the win anyway, despite having a really rotten piece of luck happen during that game.
Yeah, Curtis Samuel really the only weapon utilized for Washington. Otherwise, I think you're right, Thor. I think the Vikings did a great job at keeping Washington because it's going to be a very, very tough test come Sunday in Buffalo, whether Josh Allen plays or whether he's limited. We will see. There's plenty of time before that. I'm sure he'll play, and I'm sure that'll be whatever. We'll talk more about that coming up here on Thursday. However, I still want to go back to they're 7-1. I know I gave my opinion. I said I'm all in. And Thor, I'm sure you, Declan, what do you think of a 7-1 team? Does it still feel real?
It feels real. I would say when they go into this Buffalo game, and yes, I don't know how the Vikings had this QB magic where they only play backup quarterbacks for the most part this season. But let's assume it is Josh Allen, whether he's at 70% or 100%. I think that's the statement game where if you win that game, it's probably that's where that belief and feeling of, oh, this is legitimate can come from. I was talking with Realistic Randy on this YouTube channel earlier today that I had that feeling in 2017 when the Vikings played the Rams at home, and it was the number one offense in the Rams versus the number one defense, and Sean McVay and Jared Goff were just lighting it up, and they were on fire, and the Vikings kind of were it's defense. That's not going to work. Like, even though it's in their own barn, the Vikings defense probably isn't legit, and they'll get lit up by Sean McVay and this new hotshot offense. Well, the Vikings put the clamps down. They were just in control the whole game, and they basically ran the Rams out of the building. And that's, I think, for me, and it was honestly around the same time. It was around week 7 or 8 of that 2017 year, which turned out to be a 13-3 magical season, that you saw, oh, this is legit. This actually can work, and this is a Super Bowl contending team. If they lose this game to the Bills, I don't think anyone would be too shocked. But if you win it, and if maybe you potentially win it convincingly, I think you're going to finally start to see a lot more national attention and respect on the Vikings name, because obviously the Bills are right up there with the Chiefs and Eagles as the Super Bowl favorites this season.
And again, can we talk about how just wonky the football league is this year? What we saw yesterday. I mean, the Jets pushing against the Buffalo Bills. Who knew that? Who knew that they still played football, apparently? You also see Detroit take down Green Bay, which was even better than a Vikings win, let's be honest. It was just glorious. Like, it's such a weird season this year, right? Like, it's just kind of all over the place. It's chaotic. It's very chaotic to me.
It for sure is. And the jump from the situational football under Mike Zimmer to the situational football under Kevin O'Connell is so vast. You almost cannot understate it. And in a year where the NFC was down and some wonky stuff is happening in the NFL, like you're talking about, Jesse, what a great part of the team to just leap up from decidedly below average in the league and maybe one of the league's worst in situational spot. The last Zimmer team last season, they would give up all, they'd have a lead and they'd give up all those points late in the game, and then they blow the games. This one is the complete opposite. And in this situation, in this circumstance, the context the Vikings are existing in now, it's not a surprise that they're 7-1 with how well they're playing situationally. The thing yesterday, it's at the end of the game. The Vikings are going to kick the field goal to go ahead at the end of that game. And there's a minute and 50 seconds left or whatever. And then the Washington guy gets the dumb penalty trying to jump over the long snapper or whatever. They get the penalty. O'Connell takes it, even though he's taking points off of the board, in order so that he can run the clock to 0. And O'Connell actually told his offense, do not score. Do not score on these faults. We just want the clock to get as close to 0 as we can. Then we're going to kick the thing again. That's what they did. And there was only one play that Washington had after that. That's just super duper smart situational football. And another example of something that O'Connell did different than almost assuredly Zimmer would have in the same spot.
O'Connell, best coach in the league. We willing to say it? I mean, I think that's a valid conversation, especially at this point in his first year with this team. And yes, he has the talent underneath him, right? But he's able to exploit and use it the way that hasn't been done before, right? So, I mean, I think I'd say yes, and that's even an unbiased coming. I think Kevin O'Connell definitely needs to be in that discussion if he isn't already.
He's way up there in terms of the front runners for Coach of the Year. I'm trying to pull up the odds right now. I don't know if they've dropped. Actually, no, they have the new one. So O'Connell, the front runner right now is Nick Sirianni. I feel like O'Connell's doing as good of a job as that guy. It's O'Connell's first year, right? Like, and he had to take, it's like that Bill Parcells quote about if you want me to cook the meal, you should let me buy the groceries. Well, O'Connell, most of the groceries are already there, right? Because the previous administration, they had a lot of guys locked up and stuff like that. And he's turning the same ingredients that Mike Zimmer used to cook a meal that only Jesse could appreciate into now a 5-star gourmet meal.
Leave the gravy off. I probably would be more Mike Zimmer.
There's some gravy in this meal that O'Connell's been cooking. Yeah,
there certainly
and some peanut butter cups too, Jesse.
Oh God, Declan, where do you stand on peanut butter cups? I need to know.
Love Reese's peanut butter cups. Love Reese's peanut butter cups. What was your? I saw your candy tweet. I'm blanking on it from earlier this week or last week on Halloween, Jesse.
Mounds,
what was your
Mounds and Almond Joys?
Okay, Mounds and Almond Joys, Jesse, are the ones you give to your dad or your weird uncles that you never eat out of your Halloween.
I'm that person.
Here we go. Exactly right.
I had somebody at the Wild game bring me all of his from his kids thing. Like, it was some fans.
Wait, really?
Here you go. Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh gosh.
Ugh,
shout out to the fans,
chance.
guys. You guys they're so good. Have you had come on. I feel like you guys haven't even enjoyed them. You said coconut, no, hard pass, and you've just never gone back.
I would say in general, Halloween's fine, but I'm more of a sour and a sour based candy guy. So I love ices, I love Starburst, I love Skittles, I love gummy worms, chocolate Sour Patch Kids, but candy bars, chocolate. No, yeah, that's at a movie. It is the largest possible icy that gives me a billion cavities, and a bag of Twizzlers or Starburst. That's my go-to at the movies.
That's fair. Yeah, we've every episode, Declan, we have had to give like some food take, and apparently I have no taste buds. And
I love
it embarrasses people. That's just what it is. Also, before we get to our Before We Dies, which we end every episode with here of Purple Dailies Before We Die on Score North, Thora, could you please pull up the last week's predictions that we made, and let's look at the leaderboard as well, if you wouldn't mind.
We're taking the opportunity without Ross here to pull up the leaderboard.
I'm still winning. That's really
that's
all
why you want to do it.
Yeah.
I will absolutely ignore it once I'm no longer in first place, but I've been in first place all year.
Oh, no, that's when I'm going to start pounding the standings at that point. But no, I was up one on Jesse was up one on me heading into last week, and Jesse gained another game on me. So Jesse's 19 and 17. I got 17 wins in this thing. And I probably shouldn't mention Ross's record. Ross is struggling in third, but
it's pathetic, frankly.
Yeah. Well, he turns it on late. I mean, we all know this about Ross. He's a slow starter, but in the fourth quarter, that's a guy who's there for you. His takes are going to get better in Thor's Hammers for the rest of the season.
Exactly. Again, we do Thor's Hammers every single Thursday in Thursday's episode. Let's wrap her up, guys. Again, it's a victory. We love it. We loved seeing everybody out there. So before we die, the Minnesota Vikings are going to beat the Buffalo Bills.
Ooh.
This year. I said it. See, this is the problem. Once I get on board,
I like that. I like that.
I am just
that little
all
hedge.
in,
That's
and
a nice
it's
one.
insane. It's insanity now. Like the Kool-Aid is doused. I just, okay. That's my Before We Die. Move on.
So Jesse, you're not necessarily saying this week. You're saying it could be the Super Bowl as well.
It could. This week. Yep. Leave it open ended there.
I like that. Well, here's my before we die. Before we die, Thor on the panel is going to give a better apology to Ed Donatel than he did earlier this episode, and it's coming right now. Ed, if you're out there watching, right in the eyes, I'm so sorry. It's September. You got to understand how badly we've been hurt as Vikings fans. And when your defense started out poorly, you had the thin boxes, teams were running on you, that you were getting eaten alive in the passing game. Some of those games. There was some scarring in my psyche that was cropping up. And that's why we're getting mad at you. But boy, have you turned it around, Ed. We were wrong. You were right. The whole thing is now clicking. The guys are starting to know their roles and everything like that. Ed Donatel, I apologize. You were right. Thor was wrong.
I love it. I'll say this one, and Thor, I don't know if you saw us floating around on Twitter, but on Saturday, I headed down to Iowa, went across the border. I went to Diamond Joe's for the first time.
Oh, love it.
Checked out that FanDuel Sportsbook, and luckily I was able to win most of the money back on some very late night non-booze infused video blackjack, and also the World Series game playing out. But man, before I die, I would like to get one of my 3-item parlays to hit at a sportsbook. I went 0 for 4 on all 3-item parlays, Thor, including the one that hurt the most. I had Illinois on the money line at minus 720, which was the easiest leg I thought in my parlay. Illinois to beat Michigan State. I took Georgia to cover the 9.5. I took Penn State to beat Michigan State. That was no problem. But Illinois, or Penn State on the money line, to win their game. But Illinois against Michigan State was supposed to be the easiest. It was minus 720 on the line for them to win that game. And I ended up with a sunk $20 ticket that I had to throw in the trash. So before I die, can I get one 3-item parlay to hit when I go down with the buddies and make some bets, for God's sakes?
And before I die, my second one, I want Brett Bielema to apologize to you for torturing that ticket. Every time you start, Bielema, he'll sneak up on you, and then you trust him one time, and he falls out his face. You hate to see that.
You could tweet at him. I think I saw that floating around on Instagram. Somebody actually tweeted at a player, I forget who it was now, and said, "Hey, you owe me like $50 because of whatever you made me lose." And he's like, "Send me your info." And like,
really?
Send the dude $50. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah. Let's send the ticket to Bielema and get a refund.
Good old Diamond Joe's. As a Iowa Stater, and I'm sure as a Hawkeye, you frequented that spot. I remember.
Always went down on 35. You passed that thing, right?
Yeah.
In Lawrence for undergrad, it would drive right by. And then when I went to Iowa City for grad school, you drove right by that thing. I spent multiple nights there. I've also gambled in that place. Not a bad destination.
So you can gamble at 18, right, in Minnesota at that time, and down there you could not. So I remember going down with my dad, and he likes to toss in $20 to a machine or whatever, but I couldn't gamble, thinking that a good father would be like, okay, we'll just go home then. Nope, he gives me $10 to go eat Burger King because it was attached to the place, right? And then he goes and gambles for half an hour. He wins $100 and gives me $50 though. So all good. in the
That's a good
neighborhood,
father
but
move.
yeah,
That's a great father move.
he saved himself as a parent there, I think, at the time. Like, I was like, really? You want me just to sit here like I'm Stephen Glansberry all by myself? Like,
Yeah.
it's weird. Anyway, you guys, this is Purple Dailies Before We Die on Score North. I'm Jesse Pierce. He's Thor Nystrom. He's Declan filling in for Ross, who is our producer. We'll be back with us on Thursday for our next episode where we will look at the Buffalo Bills game. Can't wait. As always, share, like, rate, drop your comments below. We will read some of your comments below if they are appropriate. I'm looking at every single one of you right now when I say that, right in the eyeballs. That just, no, guys, no. Anyway, you guys are the very best as always. We'll see you back here on Thursday. Go Vikes.
Skol Vikings.